Good day, everyone. We are going to report about the educational facilities in basic education. What does educational facilities mean? Educational facilities refers to all the physical properties of a school consisting of the grounds, buildings, and the various facilities within the school grounds and inside the school buildings, also known as the school plant or the physical facilities of a school. So educational facilities means these are the buildings and equipments, structures, and special educational use areas that are built, installed, or established to serve primarily the educational purposes. This means the things we can see inside the school, just like the library, the grounds, just like you see in the picture, classrooms, gymnasiums, and more. What is the importance of educational facilities? So, these are considered indispensable to a school. They do not only provide housing for the school, but also serve as facilitating agents for all the educational activities that take place in school. So, this means that the educational facilities do not only provide buildings and infrastructure for the school, but it can help in facilitating the learning of the students inside the school. It also affects the performance, the health, behavior, the engagement, the learning and growth of the students. So, what is the basic principle of the educational facilities? Its primary function of educational facilities is to provide the proper school environment that is most conducive to effective teaching and learning. So, ensuring that educational facilities are conducive for the learning of the students, classrooms should be well ventilated, the lighting should be great, and should be properly furnished and free from noises and distractions. Playgrounds should be free from hazardous materials and objects. It should be safe for the children to learn and grow. School laboratories should be well equipped for proper engagement of the students. Functional and effective educational facilities are developed, operated, and managed on the basis of a comprehensive plan of action of the school prepared by all the stakeholders in education in the community. It shall include sound educational facility planning and design process principles to A. Maximize collaboration in school planning design through consultative planning, design, and project implementation, involving a wide spectrum of representatives from the community. So, for example, we have administrative decision makers, we also have the parents, the business and community leaders, teachers, school administrators, and pupils or our learners. For letter B, build a proactive facility management program which anticipates facility problems during the planning phase, like maintenance and operations of the educational facilities. And for letter C, plan schools as neighborhood scale community learning centers considering these following steps. For number one, locate the school in a well-defined neighborhood. So this means that the site or location of the school should be considered in a safe and well-defined community, for it is very important. Number two, provide a variety of services at flexible schedules, making the same accessible to end users of different backgrounds, especially during the times of calamities, disasters, wherein the school buildings are used as evacuation centers and temporary shelters to the affected community members. For number three, create an environment that draws the community to the school. So, by this, creating an environment that draws the community to the school means developing a space and atmosphere that encourages local residents, the community, including families, the organizations around the school to actively engage and support the activities of the school. So it involves creating opportunities for collaboration, involvement, and the mutual benefit of the school and the community. Example, we have here the activity which is the welcoming atmosphere. So the school should be inviting and open to the community. So this can be achieved to having a clear signage, friendly teachers and staff, and an inclusive culture that makes everyone feel like they belong. And like another activities, we have community events, hosting events such as fairs, workshops, and more. So these events can showcase students' talents, provide valuable resources, and offer opportunities for networking. And another thing, we have the partnership and collaboration. So building partnerships with local businesses, organizations can foster a shared sense of shared purpose. So this could involve the internships of the students, the sponsorships, and the joint community projects. So we also have volunteering opportunities, which offers a way for community members to volunteer activities inside a classroom, inside a school, campus, and events through mentoring programs that can increase the engagement and investment in the school's success. And we also have the parent involvement. So by establishing advisory board that include the parents and the community can provide a valuable impact and can foster a sense of ownership and collaboration. We also have communication channels, so regularly updating the community through social media and other platforms for the community that helps keep everything informed about what is happening inside the school and how can they get involved. So by creating such environment, the school becomes more than just a place for education. It becomes a part of the community, benefiting both the students and the community. Number four, the school shall provide facilities to accessible to the entire community. So it means that the school should have facilities and amenities that are open and usable by everyone in the community. So not just for the students, teachers, and the school, but also usable and open for the community. So this includes having accessible buildings for people with disabilities, offering rooms or auditoriums or gymnasiums for community events, and ensuring that the facilities are available for public use, such as for local meetings or classes. So the ultimate goal um, is to make the school a welcoming and functional resource for the whole community. Number five, when school facilities that act as true community centers to serve the broader society goals. So when school facilities act as true community centers to serve a broader societal goals, it means that the school is not just a place for education, but also a hub for community engagement, development, and support. So, for example, we have the partnerships with local organizations. So, collaborating with local organizations is to provide services or events no, that can happen in the school. So this can include local hostings, government meetings, partnering with health organizations for different programs, or working with nonprofits for community outreach initiatives. So next we have the educational facilities programs. No? So an educational facilities programs is basically a comprehensively planned set of decisions for actions which are directed at the achievement of specific goals within specified time frames. It shall be an integral part of the total educational program of the school. So, educational facilities program, these are the initiatives made to enhance the students' learning and community involvement. So, just what I've mentioned now, we have parent education programs, so organizing sessions to help parents support their children's learning, include the parenting workshops and family literacy programs. We also have summer camps, running educational and recreational camps during school breaks that focus on areas like science, um, arts, sports, and more. We also have health clinics which provides health screenings, immunizations, or wellness checkups in partnerships with the local health organizations. And the most common is the job training and career development, where offering programs that provide career counseling, resume building, and job search assistance to help community members improve their employability. And we also have community service projects. So, organizing student led initiatives that address local needs, such as food drives, environmental cleanups, volunteering at local shelters. No? So, these programs aim to enhance the learning opportunities, support personal and professional growth, and foster a stronger connection between the educational facility and the community. School mapping. Now, so school mapping is a dynamic process of planning the distribution, size, and spacing of schools and physical facilities requirements for optimum utilization and benefits. So, school mapping involves a strategic discussion on how to best utilize and optimize the school's resources, the space, and the programs. So, school mapping includes the current layout and usage and such reviewing the existing physical layout and how well it supports educational activities and daily operations. So that is to identify areas of underutilization or congestions. It can also have a resource inventory. Discuss the current inventory of the resources like textbooks, equipments, facilities, technologies to determine if there are gaps or areas that needs adjustment. And we also have the enrollment and class size, so analyzing student enrollment patterns and class sizes to ensure optimal distribution and avoid overcrowding. School mapping also evaluate the effectiveness of existing programs and identify needs for new ones, considering student interest and community demands. It also ensures that the school environment is accessible to all the students, including those with students with disabilities, and that safety protocols are in place. School mapping also consider the future planning, the future growth and development, which includes potential expansions or renovations, and plan for long-term needs and how to accommodate the needs of the students, teachers, or facilities. We also have school mapping discuss how the school can better serve the community. So including the facilities that can be used for community events or partnership, and also the budget, assessing the budget constraints and allocate resources efficiently to address the most pressing needs and goals. So this school mapping aims to create a well-rounded plan that enhances educational quality, optimizes resource, and aligns with both current and the future needs. So we have here two process. Letter A, specific areas for expansion, and letter B, initial steps in mapping. For letter A, specific area for expansion, number one, rationalization of existing facilities by locating existing schools and determining its vulnerability to various geological and hydrometeorological hazards. So rationalizing existing facilities in this context means systematically accessing and optimizing the use and placement of current school buildings by considering their vulnerability to various hazards. So we have here the what do you mean by geological hazard? So this evaluate the risk of geological hazards such as earthquakes, landslides, and soil erosion. So for instance, schools located in earthquake-prone areas might need to be assessed for structural integrity and earthquake preparedness. For hydrometeorological hazards, it assesses the vulnerability to uh, hazards such as floods, hurricanes, or severe storms. No, and this involves reviewing historical data on such events and understanding how they might impact school facilities. So, by identifying this is to enhance the safety and resilience of school facilities by ensuring that the school are well positioned and equipped to handle the potential hazards. So, this approach helps to protect the learners, the staff, the teachers, and also the infrastructure, ultimately contributing to a more secure and effective educational environment. Next, we have the new schools must be located outside areas already identified to be within hazard zones. So, rationalizing existing facilities by ensuring that the new schools to be built are located outside the identified hazard zones means strategically planning the placement of the new schools to avoid areas prone to hazards or specific risk. So by doing this, to protect the students, the staff, the teachers, and the educational facilities from the potential impact of natural and man-made disasters. So by avoiding these high risk areas, you can enhance or the school can enhance the safety and stability of the educational environment, contributing to a more secure and effective learning experience of the student. Next, shifting closure or amalgamation or integration of institutions and optimum utilization of buildings, equipment, furnitures, and more. So this is optimizing the use of educational institution to improve the efficiency and effectiveness. This is also to optimize the use of educational facilities to improve the quality of education and ensure that resources are used effectively to meet the needs of students and the community. So, by making strategic adjustments and improvements, institutions can better support educational activities, reduce cost, and create a more effective learning environment. For number two, provision of new or additional facilities by opening of new schools or upgrading existing ones, providing additional teaching and non-teaching staff, and providing new or additional buildings, furniture, and equipment in institutions. So, provision of new or additional facilities focuses on expanding and improving educational resources to meet the needs of the students and the teachers. These measures collectively aim to improve educational quality, meet growing demands, and create an optimal learning environment, ultimately benefiting students, teachers, and the wider community. Another, for letter B, the initial steps in school mapping. For number one, diagnosis of the existing situation. So the initial step in school mapping is to make a survey on the existing situation in order to obtain all information about the network of schools and their physical resources and means, considering the following factors. So these are the factors that needs to be considered. We have environmental or geographic factors, demographic factors, economic factors, educational factors, political and manpower factors. So when planning for a new or additional educational facilities, it is very important to consider a variety of factors to ensure that the facilities meet the needs or the standards of the community and should be sustainable. So, by considering these factors, we have environmental, geographic, economic, demographic, educational, political, and manpower. Educational facility planning can address the diverse needs of the community, can also ensure effective use of resources, and create a supportive and sustainable learning environment. Number two, the projection of future requirements. So, estimating the number of children to be enrolled and determining the capacity of existing schools and defining their catchment areas. So, for the projection of future requirement involves estimating the number of children to be enrolled. It predicts future students the number of students by analyzing the population growth, the historical enrollment data, and community factors, and also determining the school capacity can assess the current capacity of existing schools, including the facilities and resources, to determine if they can accommodate the large numbers of future students. And establish a catchment areas based in geographic proximity, population distribution, and assessing to ensure schools are conveniently located and effectively serve the communities. So these steps help to ensure that educational facilities are prepared to meet future demands and serve the community efficiently. So by estimating the future enrollment numbers, assessing capacity of existing schools, and defining appropriate catchment areas, educational planners can effectively anticipate and meet the future educational needs. So this approach helps to ensure that the schools are well equipped to accommodate the large numbers of students to be enrolled and can serve the community efficiently. For number three, drawing up of perspective school map. So the school map becomes an integral part of the general map of public services for the community. The school map produced shall not be regarded as final unless it has been considered and discussed by central administrators, local authorities, teachers, parents, and more. Continuous monitoring and evaluation of the school mapping data, results, outputs are very important. And last, geological and hydrometeorological hazard maps generated by mandated national government agencies. So drawing up a perspective school map involves creating a detailed visual representation to plan and guide the development or improvement of educational facilities. A perspective school map is a strategic tool that visualizes on current and future educational needs, guiding decisions on where to build, upgrade, or relocate schools to effectively serve the community. So we have here educational data for the basic data needed for the school mapping. So we have the annual statistical report that helps in tracking trends, evaluating the school performance, and making data-driven decisions for future school plans. And geographical distribution of schools. It identifies coverage gaps, ensures equitable access to education, and informs decisions about where new schools might be needed or where existing ones might need expansion. Number three, site and catchment area conditions. So it ensures that the schools are situated in safe, accessible locations and helps in planning for necessary improvements or adjustments in the areas. And number four, size of the existing school plan. So it determines if the current facilities or the school can accommodate current and the future number of students or the populations and identifies needs for expansions or upgrades. For individual schools, exact location or verbal description of location, the nature of catchment area, and the number of student spaces available in each year, indication of the state of buildings. So, for individual school, a comprehensive assessment of individual school involves the detailed information on their exact location, catchment area characteristics, available spaces for students, and the condition of the buildings. So these informations are essential for effective planning, ensuring that the schools can meet the needs of their communities and learners to adapt future demands. Letter B, population data, analysis of the census and other planning data, the general rural and urban development policies, social facilities to encourage nucleation of population at the central points. So, analyzing population data for letter B and integration other planning, such as development policies and social facilities, it provides comprehensive approach to educational planning. So this ensures that the schools are well positioned to meet the current and the future needs, align with a broader community development goals, and support the overall well-being and connectivity within the school and community. For the number three, expected results of school mapping. So the first is the school buildings requiring repairs, schools requiring additional classrooms, opening of new schools, phasing out of existing schools, the resource allocation, the environmental mapping. So, school mapping provides a detailed overview of current educational infrastructure, highlighting or identifying the areas that needs repairs, additional resources, or new developments. It helps in making informed decisions about expanding, opening extensions, closing or reallocating resources to improve educational facilities and ensure that they can meet the needs of the community effectively. So number five, we have here the specific outputs of school mapping. So prioritization of schools. Next, identifying the location of new schools and grouping of entries based on a defined set of attributes. So, number six, we have the school mapping exercise or the SME of DepEd. What is SME? So, SME is a tool which marks the departure from the normal way of doing things at the DepEd. So, SME or the school mapping and evaluation or school mapping exercises represent significant shift in how the DepEd approaches educational planning and resource management. It aims to improve efficiency, equity, and responsiveness in managing educational resources and infrastructure. So we have here the school mapping exercises of DepEd. We have the components of SME. First is the database planning. Second is the geographic information system or the base school profiling system and capacity building of regional or division offices and local government units. So these components are integral to modernizing educational planning and resource management. So, for database planning, it includes creating databases for student enrollments, school facilities, and allocations of resources to ensure that data accuracy, accessibility and integration across the different levels of the education system. So for the second one, the geographic information system, the based school profiling system, it involves mapping school locations, analyzing the geographic factors such as accessibility and environmental risk and hazards, and assessing spatial distribution of educational resources. It helps in visualizing data and making informed decisions about school placements and resource needs. And for number three, the capacity building of the offices and LGUs, it provides training and support to regional and division offices, as well as the LGUs to enhance the skills in data analysis and resource management. So ensures that this can effectively implement and benefit from SME initiatives. So these components work together to enhance the effectiveness of school mapping and evaluation. So this uh, with the skills needed to leverage these tools for improved educational planning and management. Next, so these are the most questions, no? Frequent questions addressed by SME. So where is the nearest area with more than 10-meter evaluation to be designated as possible evacuation site? The second, what is the shortest route to the site? The third, for existing schools along the coastline, when will tsunami drills be conducted? And last, is the chosen site vulnerable to landslides or mudslides? So this is the school mapping exercises by the DepEd. So the first one, the data gathering, and next would be the encoding of the geographic coordinators using the GPS and the Geographic Information System or the GIS, and the number four, the evaluation and analysis of data. And then the last one will be the decision making. Next, we have here the school community relations. So we'll be talking about the relationships of the school and the community. So for number one, we have here the educational facilities program. It should be planned to provide equipment, furniture, and other physical resources required for both school and community educational programs. And number two, the school facilities shall be designed satisfactorily for joint school and community use by considering both the child and the adult needs. So, in light of the community and school concept, we have the example, the ALS, the Alternative Learning System of the Department of Education. So public schools have broadened their scope in the educational activities and services to include the out of school youths and adults in the community where the school is situated. The school community relations refer to the interactions and partnerships between schools and their surrounding communities. So this relationship is very crucial in fostering supportive educational environment and enhancing the student outcomes. So the purpose of this community relations to school is to establish a mutually beneficial partnership to the school, the community organizations, and local governments. So this includes projects, sponsorships, and community service to enrich the or for educational experience and provide additional requirements and support for the schools, and also for the engagement of community members in the educational process and the school activities. So this encourage participation through volunteer opportunities in the parent teachers associations and community events. It also maintained the open lines of communication between the schools and the community for regular updates and school activities, no, posted to social medias that ensures the community members are well informed and can provide the feedbacks. Also, it builds the trust and support, so fosters a positive and trusting relationship between the schools and the community. So it involves addressing the concerns, celebrating success, and acknowledging community contributions. So effective school community relations are very essential for creating a supportive and engaged educational environment. So by fostering cooperation, collaboration, maintaining the open communication, the trust, and if it work together, it can enhance educational outcomes and support the success of the students. Next is ergonomics. So, what do you mean by ergonomics? Ergonomics is the science of designing and arranging work, environment, tools, and tasks to fit the capabilities and limitations of the human body. The goal is to enhance comfort, safety, and productivity by improving how people interact with their work environment. So we have here ergonomics pertains to the laws and theories of energy expenditure. Second, it involves the study of the efficiency of persons in their working environment, which is most conducive to the efficient performance of the teaching and learning tasks. Next, the ergonomics of the educational facilities involves such as factors of anthropometry, thermal comfort, visual comfort, acoustical comfort, and color and safety. So, anthropometry. What does anthropometry means? So it means, or anthropometry is a science of measuring the human body, its parts and functional capabilities. An important principle in the ergonomics of the educational facilities is that it shall be designed and scaled to fit the sizes of their users on the basis of their part body measurements. The basic body measurement is the standing height of the individual. So, anthropometry plays a very critical role in ergonomics. Designs help by providing data on human dimensions and variability. Anthropometry provides essential data on human body dimensions and proportions, which is very crucial for ergonomic design, product development, and health assessment and planning. By understanding and developing and applying anthropometric principles, designers and planners can create environment, tools, and products that better fit the needs of the community to enhance the comfort, the safety, and the functionality. So I have here types of part body measurements. We have two, the static measurements and the dynamic measurements. So static measurements, these are measurements based purely on the dimensions of the body parts. So lower leg, upper leg, the hip width, the shoulder width, the height of elbow, thickness of thigh, and eye height when seated and standing. So the static measurement refers to the physical dimensions and proportions of the human body taken while the body is in a stationary, non-moving position, and these are crucial for various applications, including designs, product development, and health assessments. And static measurements are fundamental for designing products and environment that accommodate to the physical needs of the individuals. So, by providing a detailed understanding of body dimensions, this static measurements helps to ensure that designs are functional and inclusive. Whereas in the dynamic measurement, this refers to the measurement based on what can be performed. Like, for example, the forward reach of the arms, the upper reach of the arms, the lower reach of the arms, and the height of the hand. So, this measurement referred to measurements taken while the body is in motion or is moving, or the movement, or engaged in physical activities. So, unlike the static measurements, which assess the dimensions in a stationary position, the dynamic measurements capture how the body moves and interacts with its environment. These measurements are very crucial for understanding and optimizing the functional performance in the different contexts, including ergonomics, including science, physical rehabilitation, and more. So, dynamic measurements provide valuable insights into how the body performs, how the body moves during different activities. So, by capturing data on reaching, range of motions, and functional strength, this helps to optimize ergonomic designs, enhance athletic performance, and support effective rehabilitation strategies. So next we have the methods in taking part body measurements. We have A. Measuring actually each of the whole range of part body dimensions. B. Measuring only the standing height and then deducing the part body measurements from it by using a system of proportion which relates part body measurements to standing height.